October 1959, Abilene, Texas. A wheat farm 12 miles east of town on a flat section road that runs straight into the horizon. A combine sits in the middle of the south field, engine off, half the wheat still standing. A young man in his early 20s is working alone on the machine, wrench in hand, shirt soaked through, hands blistered raw. He has been running this combine for 3 weeks without a day off. He has not slept more than 4 hours any night since his father died. At the edge of the section road, a dusty station wagon slows down. The driver looks at the half-finished field, then at the young man on the combine. Then he pulls to the shoulder and gets out. Nobody recognizes him yet. Please press the hype button on your phone to support my videos and me. Here is the story. James Holt farmed this land for 31 years. He broke the first 40 acres himself in 1928 with a second-hand tractor and a borrowed disc harrow. He built the farmhouse from salvaged lumber the following spring. He married a woman named Ruth from Coleman County in 1933, and they raised one son on that land, Daniel, born 1936. James Holt is the kind of farmer who knows his soil the way a doctor knows a patient. What it needs, what it will give, what will break it. He has never missed a mortgage payment in 31 years. Not through the drought years, not through the war years when the labor was gone and he ran the whole operation himself. Not once. He died on the combine on a Tuesday morning in September. His heart stopped somewhere in the middle of the north field. Danny found him at noon, still in the seat, the engine idling. The combine had been running in circles for 2 hours, cutting the same narrow strip of ground over and over, a perfect ring worn into the wheat. Danny shut the engine off. The field went very quiet, the kind of quiet that only exists in flat Texas farmland when the wind drops and the machinery stops. He sat in the stubble beside the machine for a while before he could do anything else. Danny is 23 years old. He had been working beside his father since he was 8. He shut the engine off. He sat in the field for a while. Then he drove to town and made the arrangements, and came back and finished the north field the next morning, because the wheat does not wait, and his father would not have waited. The bank note on the equipment came due October 15th. $1,200 on the combine James bought in 1957. 2 payments left. James had planned to cover it from the harvest. The harvest was not finished. The loan officer at First National Bank of Abilene sent a letter in the first week of October. The letter said the note was due regardless of circumstances. It said if payment was not received by October 15th, the bank would begin proceedings to secure the collateral. The collateral was the combine. Without the combine, the harvest could not be finished. Without the harvest, there was no payment. Danny read the letter at the kitchen table, the same place his father had read every piece of mail for 31 years. He folded it and put it in the drawer. He went back to the field. He has been running the combine 18 hours a day since the first week of October. His hands blistered on the 3rd day, and the blisters broke and calloused over and blistered again. He does not notice them anymore. The combine seat is set to his father's height and his father's reach, and he has not changed the settings. He tells himself it is because adjusting the seat takes time he does not have. He knows that is not the only reason. The neighbors came the first week. Ed Pruitt from the next section offered his boys for 2 days. Margaret Solis brought food 3 times and left it on the porch. Danny thanked them all and turned down the help. His father ran this farm alone for 31 years. Danny is not going to finish the first harvest of his life with other men's hands. The man who gets out of the station wagon on the section road is not a neighbor. He stands at the fence line and looks at the south field. Half the wheat still standing, the combine in the middle of it, engine off. A young man on the machine with a wrench. He opens the gate and walks into the field. The stubble is dry and loud underfoot. The particular crunch of harvested Texas wheat ground in October, hard-baked and resistant. He does not hurry. He walks the way a man walks when he has already decided what he is going to do, and the only thing left is the walking. Danny hears the boots in the stubble and looks up. This is private land. The man looks at the combine. What's wrong with it? Danny looks at him. Nothing, that's your business. The belt on the header drive is slipping. I've got it. The man looks at the belt. He looks at Danny's hands on the wrench. He looks at the wheat still standing in the field around them. You've been running this machine alone. Danny looks at the wrench. 3 weeks. The man is quiet for a moment. He looks at the combine seat, then at Danny. "That's your father's setting on the seat." Danny does not answer. The man does not leave. He takes his jacket off and sets it on the combine step and crouches down beside the header drive and looks at the belt from underneath. He does not ask for the wrench. He looks at the problem the way a man looks at something mechanical that he understands. "Hand me that," he says. Danny looks at him for a long moment. The man is looking at the belt, not at Danny, not performing patience, just waiting. Danny hands him the wrench. "Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches." They work the belt together for 40 minutes. The man knows what he is doing. Not like a man who has read about combines, but like a man who has worked around machinery his whole life and understands the logic of it. He does not talk while he works. He does not explain what he is doing or why. He adjusts the belt tension at 3 points along the drive, checks the pulley alignment by eye, finds a cracked idler bracket that Danny had not noticed, and tightens it with the wrench before handing it back. Danny watches him work. He does not ask how the man knows to look at the idler bracket. He can see that the man knows. The sun has moved a quarter of the sky by the time they are done. The man stands up from under the header and wipes his hands on a rag from the combine step. He looks at the belt and the pulleys. He looks at the idler bracket. He looks at Danny. "Fire it up." Danny climbs into the seat. He starts the engine. The header runs clean. He looks down at the man standing in the stubble below. The man picks his jacket up. He looks at the wheat still standing in the south field, then at the position of the sun, then at the combine. How much is left? Maybe 2 days if the weather holds. The man nods slowly. He does not look at Danny when he asks the next question. He looks at the field. "You've got a bank problem." Danny looks at the horizon. October 15th, 4 days. The man picks up a handful of wheat from the stubble and turns it in his fingers. He looks at the grain. "Good crop. It was my father's last one." Danny says it without meaning to. He says it the way things come out when a man has been alone in a field for 3 weeks with no one to say them to. The man looks at him. He does not look away. He does not say he is sorry. He just looks at Danny for a moment the way a man looks at something he is taking the full measure of. "What's the note?" "$1,200. 2 payments left." The man is quiet. He looks at the combine seat, still set to James Holt's height and reach. He looks at Danny's hands on the controls, blistered and calloused, and 23 years old, carrying everything James Holt built. "Your father planted this field," he says. "He didn't plant it for the bank. He planted it for you. Finishing it is your job. Paying for it is mine." He puts his jacket on. "You finish the wheat." Danny looks at him. "Mister, I don't take money from strangers." The man looks at him steadily. "I know you don't." He looks at the wheat. "That's why I'm not giving it to you. I'm paying a debt your father is owed for 31 years of feeding people who never knew his name." He pauses. A man plants wheat his whole life and dies in the field. Somebody ought to notice that. He touches the brim of his hat. "Finish the field." He walks back through the stubble toward the section road, his boots leaving clear prints in the dry Texas soil. Danny watches him go until he reaches the gate. Then he looks at the wheat still standing around him in the afternoon light. 3 weeks of his father's last harvest, still needing to be finished. He puts the combine in gear. He finished the south field in 2 days. The weather held. He ran the combine from first light to last on both days. On the second evening, he made the final pass through the last standing rows and shut the engine off in the middle of the field and sat in the seat for a while in the quiet. The field was clean all the way to the fence line. He sat in his father's seat at his father's setting and looked at the harvested ground until the light went. The south field ran flat and clean all the way to the fence line. Every row finished, nothing left standing. To the east, the sky had gone orange and then purple above the flat Texas horizon. He could see the farmhouse light from where he sat, the kitchen window. His mother would have supper on. He stayed in the seat a while longer before he climbed down. On October 14th, the day before the note came due, a cashier's check arrived at First National Bank of Abilene for $1,200, drawn on an account in California. The loan officer processed it without comment. He recognized the account name. He told his wife about it that evening. His wife asked if Danny Holt knew. The loan officer said he did not yet. His wife said someone should tell him. The loan officer said he thought someone already had. Danny Holt found out 3 days later from Ed Pruitt, who had heard it from the teller at First National. Ed drove out to the farm on a Saturday morning and found Danny in the equipment shed doing maintenance on the combine header. Ed told him standing in the shed doorway with his hat in his hand, the way men in this part of Texas deliver information they are not sure how to frame. Danny listened. He looked at the header. He looked at his hands. He thought about the man crouching under the drive belt in the south field, not asking permission, not explaining himself, just finding the problem and fixing it. He thought about what the man had said about his father. A man plants wheat his whole life and dies in the field. Somebody ought to notice that. He stood in the equipment shed for a long time after Ed drove away. Then he went back to the maintenance. He had 3 more items on his list before the machine was ready for next season. He was not going to be behind on that either. Danny Holt farmed that land for 41 more years. He paid off the equipment note the following spring from the harvest, the 2 remaining payments on time, the same way his father had paid everything on time for 31 years. He added a note to the final check. James Holt's son, paid in full. The loan officer kept the note in his desk drawer for 20 years. He said later he did not know exactly why. It seemed like something that ought not to be thrown away. Danny retired in 2000 at the age of 64. His son took over the operation. On the morning Danny handed over the keys, he did not make a ceremony of it. He walked his son out to the equipment shed and went through every machine the way James had gone through every machine with him in 1959. Every system, every adjustment, everything to watch for. When they got to the old combine at the back of the shed, his son climbed up to look at the cab. He reached for the seat height lever. Danny put his hand on his son's arm. "Leave it," he said. His son looked at him. "Dad, it's set wrong for me." Danny looked at the seat. "Your grandfather's setting," he said. "You'll get used to it." His son did not argue. He farmed with the seat at his grandfather's height for 3 seasons. In the spring of 2003, he adjusted it for his own frame. He called Danny that evening and told him. There was a silence on the line. Then Danny said, "Good, about time. The combine is still on the farm. A newer machine does the primary work now, but the old one runs, and Danny's son keeps it running and maintained the same way James kept everything, because some things you do not let go of. The seat has been adjusted twice in 40 years. Danny's grandson, who is 8, likes to climb up and sit in it. He is not tall enough to reach the controls. He sits there anyway and looks at the south field through the cab window, the way 3 generations of Holts have looked at that field. He will be tall enough in a few years. John Wayne never spoke of the wheat farm east of Abilene to any reporter or writer whose name appeared in print. He drove on toward his location scout that afternoon and did not mention stopping. The location scout was in West Texas, 2 hours further on. He arrived late and did not explain why. No one asked. What he had seen from the section road that afternoon was a half-finished field and a young man working a machine alone with blistered hands and a seat set to someone else's height. That was all he needed to see. Some things do not require more information than that. In the farmhouse kitchen, on the wall beside the window that faces the south field, there is a framed photograph. James Holt on the combine, harvest 1958, 1 year before he died. He is looking at the camera with the squinting expression of a man interrupted in the middle of work he is not done with. The south field is visible behind him, wheat still standing, the same field Danny finished alone the following October. Below the photograph, tacked to the wall without a frame, is the cashier's check receipt from First National Bank of Abilene. October 14th, 1959. $1,200, paid in full. The account holder's name is on it. Danny put it there the day he got it back from the bank after the loan closed. It has been on that wall for 60 years. In the farmhouse kitchen, the photograph of James on the combine still hangs beside the window that faces the south field. He is looking at the camera with the squinting expression of a man interrupted in work he is not done with. Below it, tacked without a frame, the cashier's check receipt from First National Bank of Abilene. October 14th, 1959. $1,200, paid in full. The account holder's name is on it. Danny put it there the day the loan closed in 1960, and it has not moved in 65 years. The afternoon light comes through that kitchen window every day and crosses the photograph and the receipt on the wall. It lies across James Holt's face in the photograph for a while, the squinting expression of a man in the middle of a harvest, and then it moves on. Outside the window, the south field runs flat to the fence line, the same ground James broke in 1928 and Danny finished alone in October of 1959, and 3 generations of Holts have farmed since. The wheat comes up every year. It always has. If this story reached you, do me a favor. Pass it on. Share it with a farmer in your life. There are more stories coming.